Hello and welcome to the campus of Cedarville University. My name is Sarah Gump and we are so glad that you are joining us here today for Get Ahead, Make the Most of College Credit Plus. So today's live stream is going to specifically be talking about College Credit Plus, which is the funding option for Ohio residents. So our conversation is going to be all about dual enrollment and how to be accepted into Cedarville University and jumpstart your high school student or your middle school student, you'll find out. But we're going to be specifically speaking about College Credit Plus for Ohio residents. So I just want to clarify that right from the beginning. But to begin, we, as I said, are on the campus of Cedarville University. Where are you viewing from today? We would love for you to comment whether you're on YouTube or on Facebook and share with us where you're located. So to begin, I'd like to introduce my two friends here. On the far right, we have Melanie. Would you like to share a little bit about yourself?
I am a former public school teacher, as a matter of fact, but I've spent most of my life teaching our own children, kindergarten through 12th grade, homeschool mom. But I've been serving on staff with Christian Home Educators of Ohio since 1994. So I serve as their legislative liaison, and the CHEO has dual-purposed to protect the right to home educate and then also to provide support for families. So that's one thing we're doing today, is helping families understand the College Credit Plus option.
Perfect. And in case you missed that, that's CHEO, which is CHEO home.org. So you should definitely check out their website for resources, which is great for homeschool families. Second, we have Shelly.
Hey, so I'm Shelly Daub. I am I'm sorry, I don't know what I am. I am the Director of Recruitment for the Dual Enrollment Program at Cedarville University. I'm also a homeschool mom. I started homeschooling in the mid-90s, so I have about 30 years of experience homeschooling and or working with homeschool families. I speak at homeschool conventions across the country and just love working with homeschoolers. I know that there's so much for you to think about when you're considering whether or not your student is ready to dual enroll, and the CCP funding program is so enticing to get some free dual credit options. So I'm just here today to make sure you understand what those options look like.
So I just want to say welcome to all the families that we have joining us so far. We have over 71 viewers, which is very exciting for us. A couple shout outs would be Zanesville, Columbus, Walton Hills, Springfield, Fairborn, Marysville, Morrow, driving. Somebody's in Florida. Glad to have you driving. And then Findlay. So thanks so much. As you can see, we're going to be in that comment section. So if you have questions, we would love for you to ask your CCP-related questions in that comment section. And hopefully today we can answer all of them to the best of our ability. So to get us started, this is our fourth annual CCP livestream as a partnership between Cedarville University and CHEO. So why do we think it's important that we've done this for 4 years in a row?
Well, I think as families come into the high school years, there's a lot of questions, a lot of doubt. Can I do this? And what are the opportunities for my student post-secondary? And how do we make the transition into post-secondary? So this explanation at least provides a picture of an option. It's not for everyone, but it's an option that's available to ease the financial obligations for paying for college. All state universities in Ohio have to participate. All the community colleges have to participate. Any public institution is required to participate. Private institutions are permitted to participate, and we're very thankful that Cedarville is a part of that group.
Yes, and I would add to that there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of myths out there about College Credit Plus funding and who's ready and who's eligible and how you get your funding. I also think that every year we've done this, there has been some new piece of legislation that adds yet another little twist. So this year we had Senate Bill 104 that came down the pike, and Melanie can share a little bit about how that is changing College Credit Plus.
It just recently passed. So the effective date on what we're going to describe is February 26th. it adds a deadline for applying to the mixture of options. So typically, the application deadline or the notification of intent deadline is April 1st. The legislature in Columbus added a November 1st deadline, and I'm going to read you the couple sentences that describe this new deadline. Any student, this is from the statute that passed, any student who provides notification by the first day of April may be approved to participate in the program for the next full school year. That would be summer, fall, spring. Any student who provides notification by the first day of November, that's the new element, may be approved to participate in the program for the next semester or term only. So the November deadline provides just one opportunity for the spring semester if you're on the semester hours.
And I want to add to that and be really clear that the Ohio Department of Education shared at a conference that I was at in November that there's no funding attached to that November 1st deadline. So all funding applications have to be submitted by April 1st. Now, that doesn't mean that funding may not become available by November 1st, but we can't count on that. We can't tell you it's going to happen for this upcoming school year. So the funding deadline is April 1. You can apply by November 1st and submit that intent to participate form. There won't be funding attached. What it does is it provides you some of the protections for your student that come with the College Credit Plus program.
And Shelley, that may change in the next several months because this is a budget year. Mm-hmm. So typically what happens in a budget year is the governor will send to the General Assembly what is referred to as his executive budget. The General Assembly then takes that and creates an actual budget legislation. We don't know the bill number yet. It's typically dropped at the end of February or early March. But I'm guessing that this November deadline might be one consideration that happens in this budget process this year. And that would be, it must be signed by the governor by July 1st. So that would be in advance of the November deadline.
Right. So stay tuned. Mm-hmm. That's the bottom line. Stay tuned. CHEO and Cedarville will keep you informed if there will be funding attached, but don't assume that it's going to happen. And so I would say go ahead and apply for funding in April. The biggest benefit that I see sitting in my seat as a recruiter at Cedarville for having that November deadline is those younger students who have not yet completed a full semester or a full year of high school coursework have just a little bit more time to complete some courses and get their high school transcript together for that November deadline. I did put up a slide that has a couple of websites so that you can take a look at Senate Bill 104 if you'd like to, or even look at the College Credit Plus page. You'll want to search on the Ohio Department of Education page for that College Credit Plus for homeschool families. It's not intuitive or easy to find, and there's no shortcut to that page that's easy to remember.
If you have trouble finding what you are looking for, please email cheo@cheohome.org, and I will help you with links or whatever it is that you specifically need.
So I'm going to ask a silly question, but can you back up just one moment and explain what is dual enrollment? We didn't really start with that.
Right. We kind of assumed that everyone knew that, so that's unfair to our audience. Dual enrollment is when a student is enrolled in two institutions at the same time. High school, or in this case, perhaps middle school, and a college. And so they are earning credit, dual credit, both at the high school and at the college level. Those are fully college classes, though. They are not adapted for your younger students, so that's important to remember.
So I'm going to take it back to Melanie, and can you give us a little history of what is College Credit Plus?
Well, the legislature decided way back in 1989 that they would have dual enrollment under the label of post-secondary enrollment option. And that initially was providing funding, and it was available only to juniors and seniors in the public and private school system. Over the years, that morphed into extending it from 11th and 12th grade initially down to what is today 7th through 12th grade. They incorporated the private schools who were not state chartered later in the timeline. Home educators were added in beginning with the 2014-2015 school year. It was actually language in the state budget in 2013. But initially, it was just $250,000 that were available for home educating families in that first school year. And now, in the last budget 2 years ago, we are sitting at $6 million over the biennium, over the 2-year budget cycle. So we'll see if that $6 million holds for the next 2 years, or if it goes up, or what happens with in this budget process this time.
Wow.
And since 2015, when it was extended, that academic year, when 2015 was when it changed from post-secondary enrollment option to college credit plus, the name changed. Since at that point in time, more than 80,000 students have taken advantage of CCP. That's, again, across all spectrums, public, private, home educating, and they have saved over $1 billion in college fees.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yep, that's pretty amazing.
So how can families get in on these savings? So there's been over $1 billion in savings since 2015. How can our viewers and their students participate?
So let's talk about the process, because it is a process. You know, everything we go to do that requires getting funding from the state is going to have some paperwork and some due process attached. So I'm going to put a slide up here. The first thing that a student needs to do is make sure that they're eligible for the College Credit Plus program. They need to be an Ohio student. They need to be enrolled in an Ohio public, private, or homeschool. And I say it that way because sometimes we have kiddos who live across the state line in Indiana but go to an Ohio school, or students who live in Pennsylvania but are Ohio residents. So it has to be both, an Ohio resident attending an Ohio school. To attend an Ohio homeschool, you have to submit your, help me with the language, Melanie.
Well, it's a notification that you are being exempt from the compulsory education statute. So it's an exemption notification. CHEO at CHEOhome.org, or CHEOhome.org rather, our website has that letter if you need it from year to year to provide your notification. What you will need for CCP is the letter that comes back, the written notification that comes back from the district that they have received your notification. So that's the element.
And we'll talk about that letter in a minute too. But you do have to first have notified your school district that you are an Ohio homeschool family. Students have to be entering grades 7 through 12. Now, we'll talk a little bit about readiness and let you discern whether or not your 7th or 8th grader is actually ready for college courses. And then they have to have a high school GPA of 3.0 or provide college-ready test scores.
Wow. So question, let's go back to 7th and 8th grade. How do they get a high school transcript?
That's a great question. We get that question every day in the dual enrollment office. If your student is in middle school and they have never taken a high school course and they're not currently enrolled in a high school course, then they have a middle school report card. That is not a high school transcript, and they will need to provide test scores. If your student has taken some high school courses early, like a lot of students take Algebra 1 in middle school, then if you are counting that course towards their high school graduation requirements, they have started their high school transcript. And you would only put on their high school transcript the courses that are counting towards their graduation requirements.
So if the testing element is the key element for the younger students, any test, ACT, SAT, should they check with the university that they're looking at, whether it be Cedarville or a different institution, as to what tests are acceptable?
That's a great question. For CCP eligibility, the state, the Ohio Department of Higher Education, has created a list of acceptable tests. they are all either college entrance exams or college placement exams. So they're not those norm reference tests that we give our kids annually, like the Iowa Test of Basic Skills or the Stanford Achievement Tests. It's not that sort of test. It's a college exam. I do recommend that you check with the colleges that you're applying to. They will post on their website what test scores they will accept, because we don't all accept the same ones.
Noted.
And it's important to note that the test scores must be remediation free, and those cutoff levels are set by the chancellor, the Department of Higher Education, in conjunction with the Department of Education and Workforce. All of that information on test scores and what the cutoff scores are to be remediation free can be found on the website for the Department of Higher Education.
And I would add to that, Sarah, that just because a student has test scores that are remediation free according to the state does not mean their test scores are going to get them admitted to the college of their choice. Colleges have the option of setting their own test score requirements, because our deans have done a lot of study on what it takes to succeed at Cedarville or at Ohio State or whatever school it is.
It just wouldn't be lower than the bottom that the state sets.
That is correct.
So it can be a minimal level that the state sets or higher depending on the institution you're looking at.
Yep. So do we just want to recap those eligibility requirements again? Ohio resident, attend an Ohio school, be entering grades 7 through 12, and have a high school GPA of 3.0 or provide college-ready test scores.
So question, what about super seniors? Can they participate in CCP?
That is another excellent question. No.
First, what is a super senior, for those who don't know?
Yeah. I love that, yes. So a super senior is a student who is in their 5th year of high school. So maybe you're just, and I've done this myself, I had a student of my own who was a super senior. You're kind of trucking along through high school and you look at your student and you think they are not ready to go out into this big wide world, right? We're going to do another year of high school. And you are welcome to do that. That is your right as a homeschool family. However, once your student has entered the College Credit Plus funding program and submitted a transcript with the high school date, graduation date, that starts the clock ticking on how many years of CCP eligibility you have left. So College Credit Plus only will provide funding for 4 years of high school, not 5.
So is that available for a total of 6 years, though, if someone starts in 7th grade?
If they start in 7th grade, yes. The graduation date clock really starts at that freshman year.
Wow. So it's important for a parent to be mindful of the maturity of their student and consider what is the optimal graduation.
And not just academic maturity, but also, in my estimation, spiritual maturity, because when you're taking these courses, you're taking, and you may be involved in group projects with students who are closer to an adult age. So you want to make sure your student is ready to be interacting with a whole different set of students in terms of completing coursework or group assignments. And there are some caveats too, because if you take a College Credit Plus course and your student does not pass the course, you will be responsible for paying back that money. So you want to make sure they're academically ready, because their grades, the results of those courses are placed on a permanent transcript as well.
Noted. So this is an important program, a really valuable program to participate in, but you should definitely evaluate college readiness.
It is. I'm going to throw up another slide here, Sarah, and just to give families an idea of what admission requirements look like at Cedarville and how they can be a little bit more rigorous than those for the College Credit Plus program, which you'll see a lot with universities, not so much with community colleges. They're, typically those are open enrollment schools. So getting admitted to a community college is a little bit easier. However, they're still going to make your student test in order to place them in a course if they don't have a high school transcript. So let's look at Cedarville's admission requirements. We require a high school GPA of 3.0. We require that high school transcript. If there is no high school transcript, we will reach out and ask your student to provide test scores. Now, one nice thing about the College Credit Plus program is it offers one free test for every student. So we have an option at Cedarville for your student to take the AccuPlacer online for free to meet that test score requirement. Cedarville also requires a church leader recommendation, and then Melanie was mentioning maturity and spiritual maturity. The state of Ohio requires us to collect a parent signature and a student signature on a mature content form that essentially says your student is taking a college class and it's not going to be adapted for your student. So if you don't like a book, you can't get the professor to change the book. If you don't like an assignment, the assignment is still your student's assignment.
And can I extrapolate beyond that? Because, and I'm not talking about Cedarville when I say this, the reason they added this language back in 2021, there were courses that were being taken by CCP students, and most all of the CCP students are minors. They're not over 18 years old. And this was a state university that was requiring these students to go through a literature course requirement where the material was straight up pornographic. It was horrendous. The student tried to withdraw, couldn't withdraw. It was a mess. So legislators stepped in because Ohio basically has a statute that says it's unlawful to pander obscenities to minors. But there's an exemption in that statute for educational institutions. So instead of rewriting that portion of the law, they went for the concept of informed consent. So all institutions that use CCP, including the Christian institutions, must provide this disclaimer statement that you have to sign, that you understand that on the issues of material that is graphic, explicit, violent, or of a sexual nature, that material, you're aware of it, that it could be, even though it would never happen in institutions like Cedarville, they're still required to put that disclaimer on their website and have you sign those statements. So that's the backstory on why that became a new requirement a few years ago. And that is.
Yeah, and thank the Lord, we do not have to worry about that here at Cedarville. All of our courses are taught from a biblical worldview, grounded in Scripture. All of our professors are Christ lovers who sign a new statement of faith every year, like they just reaffirm that they still believe all the things they believed when we first hired them. And so we maintain a lot of quality control over what is going into our courses.
Excellent. So thanks for sharing the backstory, although we would love for all of your high school students to attend Cedarville. Another question that we have is, how do I know which colleges are participating in CCP?
There is a complete list with the map and regions on the Department of Higher Education's website. So that's very accessible. You just click on the options for programs, and then you go down and find the College Credit Plus page and click on that, and you'll see the list, the clicker or the button to click for the list.
As a general rule of thumb, every state-funded college is required to participate. Right. So all community colleges and all state colleges like Ohio State or University of Cincinnati. There are a handful of private colleges, private Christian colleges that participate as well. And then there are even fewer out-of-state colleges that are allowed to participate. I don't know a lot about that, but I know there are 2 or 3.
So students have to participate in an orientation with the institutions that use CCP. So does Cedarville provide their orientation online for students to participate in that?
We do. Currently, we do that online. Now, word is from the Ohio Department of Education that a new orientation that is approved by the Chancellor of Higher Ed will actually be coming out, but we don't know when that's happening. So that all College Credit Plus students, no matter where they attend, get the same orientation. The reason for that is I think that there's a lot of confusion from students and families about things like College Credit Plus probation and what is the student's responsibility. FERPA is another piece that will be in that orientation. So if you're not familiar with FERPA, that's the Federal Educational Rights and Privacy Act, and it is a federal law that says that colleges have to treat your student as if they are an adult in terms of sharing information, no matter what your student's age is. So while parents may be very involved in the admission process, once the student is enrolled in a course, the university can only communicate with the student. Now, there are things like FERPA waivers that can be used in extenuating circumstances. The place I see that happen most often is a kiddo who gets a concussion and can't look at a screen for a while. Right? I guess I shouldn't say kiddo. These are students, but the mom in me comes out.
So we've been talking a little bit about college readiness and what you should be evaluating. So what would you say is a marker that a student is ready for a college course?
Well, in terms of like a mathematics background, I would think that you would need at least Algebra 1. So, I mean, you can go on to these websites, whether it be through Cedarville or a different institution, and look at what their admissions office would describe for admissions as being college ready. But if you can't handle the writing, the level of the volume of reading, being able to assimilate and do projects, the higher math courses that would be considered high school math courses, you can even go and try to take some practice tests with the ACT or the SAT or some of these other measurements. And that would give you an indication on scores and whether your student would be able to even hit the baseline scores for the assessments.
I think those are great recommendations for the academic side of readiness. But there's a whole lot more, right? Yes. So I think executive functioning skills are so important. Can your student manage their email? Can they manage their own time? Can they manage a calendar? Can they balance their homeschool classes, their co-op classes, their college classes, their sports, their music lessons, and all the things that they're involved in? Do they have the emotional maturity to raise their hand and say, I need help when things get hard, right? Because again, parents are not able to reach out to the school on their behalf. The student has to self-identify to the professor. They need to be able to seek tutoring on their own. There are a lot of, just a lot of self-management pieces.
So if parents listening, if they decide their student meets all the criteria and they think they're spiritually, emotionally ready for their student to begin, when should they start applying for college and universities?
Now. Everything, the paperwork has to be in place in terms of application, and then the college accepting you. You have to have an acceptance letter, so that takes a little bit of time. So you need to have those documents ready before April 1st, before the filing deadline. And it's 5 o'clock on April 1st and not 1 minute past in terms of submitting the paperwork.
Right. So we're saying if you're considering doing dual enrollment or CCP with your student, then you definitely should apply now and seek that acceptance letter, because the next thing we're going to talk about is how do you apply for CCP funding.
So many C's in there.
Yeah.
Right. You can apply for more than one college. An application to the university does not mean you're enrolling in classes at that time. You would not enroll in classes until later, after you have your funding notification. So you're just trying to get that acceptance letter based on the enrollment criteria.
I'm going to add a little caveat in there, Sarah, because I agree with Melanie and Sarah. It is so important to apply now, unless you are the parent of a younger student and you have not yet decided for your homeschool what their graduation requirements are, and you have not yet started a transcript. Do your due diligence and make sure that you, as the guidance counselor for your school, are providing everything that your student needs. The other thing I would add to that, I'm so sorry, but I just have to say this. Your student needs to be the one who applies to the colleges, not the parents. Is that
Very
what you
good.
were going to say?
No, but that's a great point.
Yeah. So if your student is not yet ready to apply, I mean, I can't tell you, Sarah, how many times I talk to a student. I call them with a question on their application, and they put their hand over the phone and say, "Hey, Mom, did you apply to a college for me?" Oh, no. Like, have that conversation with your student. Help them understand how dual enrollment is going to fit into their high school graduation plan.
And I will add that CHEO, as we support families who are home educating, we every year have an event. It's a high school symposium and a college fair. The high school symposium portion of the day is a full day of workshops for parents on mapping out the high school years. How do you create a transcript? We had a gentleman, Shelley came in with College Credit Plus portion of the day on being ready for College Credit Plus. We had a gentleman come in and talk about apprenticeships and the availability of apprenticeships in the state of Ohio. So that's a full day just for home educating parents. And then following that portion of the day at 2:30 to 4:30, we have a 2-hour college and career fair where all kinds of colleges from across the country come. Last year they came from 8 different states. We had 30 colleges, trade schools, even missionary groups who are looking to hire came. It's a great 2-hour window where it's open to the public. So we would, that's free, not just for homeschool families, but it's a great day to explore, to get questions answered, to have one-on-one time with someone who has a particular expertise that you need to help plan out your high school years. And this year that event will be Saturday, October 4. Starting at 9 in the morning till 2:30, and then 2:30 to 4:30 for the college fair.
Wow, we're planning for events in October. Mm-hmm. It's only January.
I know, but the year's going to fly by.
Wow, so speaking of planning, parents need to start planning for applying for CCP. So what do they need to apply for CCP funding?
You need the admissions letter from the college or university, or plural. You need the letter that is required to come back to you after you've notified for that exemption to home educate, to show that you are home educating. And then you need to provide whatever it is the school would require in terms of test scores and things of that nature. Mm-hmm.
So first of all, those of you who may have had an older student who participated a few years ago should know that that intent to participate form that used to be on paper is now an electronic part of the funding application. So you're still completing the intent to participate form. You will need to decide how many credit hours you're going to request. That's part of the funding application. And that's a really key piece and a place where I think there are a lot of myths. Families used to think that if they asked for more money, they'd get more money. But that's not really how it works. And so we can talk about the funding cycle later on in this conversation. But so that you need to know how many credit hours you want for your student. And again, that goes back to that high school planning piece. The college admission letter, if your student is a returning student who's already participated in College Credit Plus, then they will need to provide a letter of good standing from the college. If you have a student who is enrolled at Cedarville now, those letters will go out to your student's email inbox in a week or 2, I think. So have your student check with their advisor if you need that letter and don't have it by February 1st. We talked about high school transcripts. Mm-hmm. If your student has taken...
I'm just going to interject.
Ooh, okay.
And say we were talking about choosing the amount of credit hours that you'll need. We are just going to put in the chat right now a link to Cedarville's course offerings. Oh, so as you're planning how many credit hours you would like to take, you should look at that list and see specifically what Cedarville offers.
Oh, that's so smart. Thank you for doing that.
Did we say just because you request 8 to 12 credit hours doesn't mean you will receive 8 to 12 credit hours?
Well, we didn't say that, but that's true.
In statute, the allocation unit is defined as up to 4 credit hours. So if you see language that says allocation unit, that's not talking about a single credit. It's talking about a cluster of credits. So you may be funded for one allocation unit, which would be up to 4 credit hours. The other thing I want to mention, because I'm not sure I'll remember later, is if you enroll, if you participate in the course, if you do well, you pass your classes at Cedarville, and you've participated using CCP, and then down the road you graduate from your home education environment, and you're physically going to Cedarville on campus to finish your coursework, you are allowed to get freshman scholarships irrespective of whether you have had CCP funding and you have courses under your belt. None of the colleges and universities can discriminate for you in terms of getting that first-time student scholarship dollars that originate from the university or other sources.
That's such an important point to bring up because families are, of course, worried about finances. I will say that protection of freshman status only applies if your student attends an Ohio college or university that participates in College Credit Plus. That won't necessarily be the case if your student ends up going to an out-of-state college.
Yep. So I interrupted you, Shelley, but you want to continue on your CCP application?
Yeah, we talked about transcripts, so high school transcript, and if you do not have a letter of good standing yet, you can use your college transcript for that as well, just to show that your student is in good standing at the university. And then that homeschool letter of exemption.
We should probably mention the OHID account.
Yep, that's coming up.
Okay.
Actually, I think it's right there. If we have our slide up, the email address is there the web address is there for the OHID account. That is where you log in and begin the process. The parent will start their portal, open their portal. It takes 3 days sometimes to get the information back so you can move forward with that. Once you have an OHID portal, even if you have it as a public school teacher or some other way through the through the Department of Education, you use that one portal for everything.
And what she's talking about is the OHID account is the funding stream that gets the money from the state funding source to the institution. So the College Credit Plus dollars do not go into your personal bank accounts. They flow from the state to the college. And that same OHID account is used for multiple state programs like autism scholarships, John Peterson special needs scholarships, other types of state funding streams. So there would be a button to click on the OHID account to apply for a particular program like College Credit Plus. But you have to have that in place before moving forward to being accepted or being granted dollars through the College Credit Plus program. The other thing, and maybe I'm not trying to step ahead of where we are, the other thing is that in terms of, I am asked so often, is it first come, first serve on who gets the money? All of them are accepted through April 1st. After everything is in on April 1st, they were prioritized by grade. They will prioritize seniors, and then juniors will get the next round on down. And then if there's money left over after everyone gets something, then they go back and start again with the seniors. So it's not a first come, first serve. If you get your application in early, it puts you at an advantage. That is not how it works.
That's a good point. I would say on average, seniors have historically gotten anywhere from 15 to 24 credit hours. Wow. Depends upon the year and how many students are applying for College Credit Plus funding. 7th and 8th graders, even freshmen, typically get 4 units.
Wow.
Students who want to take more classes, though, can do so. At Cedarville, we have discounted our undergraduate rates to help out dual enrolled students by over 80%. So it's only $185 per credit hour to take a class that is not funded.
Wow. So if a senior is getting 24 credit hours, that is 2 complete semesters as full-time status. That's interesting.
It is a lot.
Mm-hmm. One other technical detail is, since this is a dual enrollment and you're mapping out course completion for the university and course completion for your homeschool records, The 3 credit hours at a college is the equivalent of 1 high school credit. So if you're trying to aim for the 20 credits to graduate from high school, you just have to keep that in mind, that the 3 credit hour course is not 3 credit hours toward your high school transcript. There's a distinction.
So when applying, we kind of mentioned the homeschool letter of exemption from compulsory attendance. What a mouthful. But when you're applying for CCP funding, can I use my 24-25 letter of exemption?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That is exactly what you do. Use the exemption letter for this current school year. If you are new to homeschooling, if your student is currently in a private school and you don't have a letter of exemption, do you know what they would do, Melanie?
The statute that was rewritten that went into effect early October in 2023 is very simple. We have one single letter. This is my husband's name, my name, the names of our children that we're home educating. We are home educating for this year under Ohio's exemption for homeschooling. You turn in one letter, not a whole notification package anymore, either by August 30th or within 5 days of withdrawing from another school to start homeschooling, or if you move it from one district, if you move in from out of state into Ohio, you have 5 school days to get that letter submitted. The district has 14 days to send you back a written notification that they have received your letter. You are lawfully home educating when they receive your letter. So we recommend families submit that in a way that shows proof of delivery. You do not have to wait for the 14 days for the school district to acknowledge in order for you to legally be homeschooling. The statute specifically says your home education is effective the moment the district receives your notification letter for exemption.
Yep. So we're getting a little down in the weeds here with some legalese, but it's all really relevant for families. One other thing that families need to know when they apply for funding is you are choosing a funding type, either homeschool or private school, based upon the school your student will attend next fall. And unfortunately, the state does not allow a homeschool funding recipient to transfer those funds to a private school or vice versa. So you really do need to have established in your mind what you're doing next year with your student.
Noted.
Public school students, if any of you have, I know homeschool families sometimes have a mix, right? Some public school and homeschool kiddos in your house. And I would say that they need to speak to their high school guidance counselor. It is a completely different funding process for public school students. They simply need to submit that intent to participate form with their guidance counselor. Their guidance counselor, their high school, are required by law to allow them to take classes at any college that they choose to. That is participating in CCP, of course.
That's a good reminder. We're specifically speaking to homeschool families and homeschool parents. Although this information about college readiness is important to consider, but the process is different. So this is for homeschool families. So if you get accepted, if your student gets accepted to Cedarville and the family is granted CCP funding, let's talk about enrolling in classes. What does that look like?
Yeah, so Melanie mentioned that there's an orientation. I'm going to go back and say it starts with that high school guidance counseling. So again, be sure that your student understands the purpose of the classes they're taking. Make sure they understand that if they're taking a college class, they should plan for probably 9 to 12 hours of study time per week for that one class, and that it is a full high school credit. So maybe as a parent, you're not putting so many classes on their plate in that semester, right? So high school guidance counseling, then the orientation session that Melanie mentioned, And then I would add that at Cedarville and at every college, students are supposed to get an advising meeting. Cedarville will not allow your student to register until they have met with an academic advisor to discuss their goals, their competencies, their interests, so that we can help them choose the right course. Because there's nothing more frustrating for students than when they graduate from high school and they have courses that aren't going to count towards a degree plan. So we really try to help students avoid that. Not every college is as well equipped as Cedarville is to provide that academic advising. We have 4 academic advisors that work with about 1,000 students. So that's a pretty good ratio. And at least 4 of our 8 staff members in the dual enrollment department are homeschool moms. So we know where you're coming from.
The best. So can we talk about free? Is this really a free program?
It's free unless your student doesn't pass the class, and then you'll have to pay the state back.
Yikes.
So it is free. It's a free. It's the state's effort to help alleviate the costs for the post-secondary options for families.
Yeah, and for you parents out there who like to have free really broken down for you, tuition is covered by the state of Ohio.
Textbooks are not.
Right. The fees are waived by the university. That's an agreement that the university has with the College Credit Plus program. Textbooks are provided by the high school. So your student who may have friends who are going to a public school and they're getting free textbooks, but because your homeschool is your high school, you will pay for the textbooks. And then if your student participates in something like Cedarville's Summer Scholars Program, which is a 2-week on-campus residential program, the parents are responsible for paying for the room and board or any things associated with that. There are a lot of classes that aren't covered, a lot of types of classes that aren't covered by College Credit Plus funding. So private one-on-one music lessons, physical education classes, and Bible classes that are considered sectarian. So if we're helping your student understand how to follow Jesus specifically in a Bible class, then that class wouldn't be covered by funding. But if the class simply has a biblical worldview, like our history classes and English classes, those are covered.
So what about summer scholars? Could that qualify for funding?
Absolutely, for the tuition and fee portion. But then, of course, the family pays for room and board. Yeah.
So even if you desired for your student to still take the Bible minor classes in high school, they could choose to pay for that course.
You can self-pay for those courses.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so what are the benefits of CCP? Why should a student do this?
So many reasons. I think the biggest one is that it really, whether your student takes 1 College Credit Plus class or a dozen, I think it helps ease the transition from high school to college. They know what to expect. They know how to communicate with a professor. They understand Canvas or Blackboard or whatever system it is that the college will use. It just makes that transition so much better.
I also think it's wise to consider students who have a mindset, I'm not planning to take the step of going to college right away. I want to go into a trade school, or I want to go into something else, maybe onto the mission field for a while. But if you take a course or 2 in college through College Credit Plus, and that student, the Lord directs their steps differently in years down the road, those credits hold, and it makes it less expensive for them years later to begin a college experience if they choose to do that later. For the time being, it's a no harm, no foul. It doesn't hurt to have a course under your belt or more. But down the road, it's to their advantage if they have something that they have to pay for later if they change their mind.
Yeah, parents, of course, are very concerned about cost, and so we talk to families every day who want to know if College Credit Plus is going to reduce the cost of their students' college education? And the answer to that question is maybe. Not necessarily, but maybe. The best way to save on the cost of college is to be at college for a shorter amount of time. So your student really needs to complete a full year of college in order to save money. Now, a full year of college is about 30 credit hours, but it's not just any 30 credit hours. Your student, as they go through their later years of high school, junior and senior year, and begin to figure out what they want to do, need to be very intentional about the courses that they choose. Some colleges, Cedarville is one, offer pathways. And so as your student works with their academic advisor, they'll want to choose courses wisely with that advisor. Students take courses for all different reasons, though, Sarah. So a student who's just taking 1 or 2 classes to find out about college or explore a topic, they're probably not going to save on the overall cost of college. But that student who's very focused, very diligent, knows what they want to do, and is intentional in their choices, has a great opportunity. My own son, during his last 2 years of high school, earned over 60 credits, and he'll be graduating from college in 2.5 years. So it is possible.
Yeah, so I just actually put in the chat cedarville.edu/pathways. So if you head to our website, you can see specifically ways that we have mapped out those accelerated offerings to help you be intentional with your College Credit Plus courses and maybe graduate early.
Right, and we have just a limited number of pathways as an example on the website. We can work with a student to help them develop a pathway, because every student who comes in as a high school student is at a different place, and they may decide this semester that they want to be a nurse and next semester that they want to be an engineer. So we do have to work with them rather fluidly at this point in time.
So we have several other questions planned, but now we're going to take a break and look in the comments section, and I'm going to rapid fire give you some questions.
Okay, it's like the hot seat.
All right, so give me a second. This was a good one from the beginning.
Oh my goodness, lots of comments in that feed there.
Yes, we have about 84 viewers right now, which is awesome. We're glad you're hanging out. So Stephanie is asking, how many max CCP credits can you have that will count towards your college graduation requirements? So is there a limit to how many classes that are CCP on your transcript? Is it marked CCP?
It is not marked CCP on your college transcript. And over the lifetime of a student, they can take up to 120 CCP credits. Now, most of those aren't going to be paid for. I mean, I shouldn't say that. All of them won't be paid for, typically. But we see students rarely who get their bachelor's degree before they finish high school.
Wow. They knew what they wanted to do with their life.
Yeah, exactly. Or maybe their mom knew what they wanted them to do. I don't know.
Okay, so this is more talking about courses, and Melanie, you hit a little bit earlier on mathematics specifically, but if a student is in pre-calc in high school and they are very math-driven, do you think they can sign up for calculus with Cedarville, or do they have to do a pre-calc requisite first?
I can't speak to the requisite part. Maybe that would be a Shelley question. But I can say that my son took a pre-calculus class in high school, and he aced his calculus class in college. So it depends on the quality of the pre-calc class that your son is enrolled in or your child is enrolled in, but it is possible. My son wasn't necessarily gifted. He was a hard worker in terms of being academically gifted, but he loved math, and he went through all of the lower level math courses. He breezed through them. He was ready for pre-calc before he finished his homeschooling, so we went that direction with him, and he did just fine.
So to answer that specific question about Cedarville and our pre-calculus requirements, the student will have to provide test scores in order to take an English or math course, even though they're not required for admission. So we will look at the student's test scores, and then we also have a calculus placement exam that we have the student take that our professors have developed. And so if the student scores well on those, then they can be given permission to enter a pre-calc class. But generally speaking...
Pre-calc or regular calc?
Pre-calc. We do not offer Calc 1 online, just so you're aware of that. Yeah. But the prerequisite for pre-calculus is typically college algebra. And, you know, I often think about these students who are very math-oriented. If they're going into a field like engineering, you can never have too much math.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
So if they need to retake pre-calculus at the college level, it's just going to continue to further solidify those skills.
Okay, let's talk about age requirements. Is there a minimum age for a Cedarville student?
We do not have an age requirement. We do want the student to be entering 7th grade and have that high school transcript. At Cedarville, we define the high school transcript as at least a full semester worth of grades in 4 core high school courses. And we define those core high school courses the same way the state of Ohio does. It's English, math, social studies, and science.
Good job, you almost forgot that.
I know.
Is there a minimum testing requirement? So they're talking about SAT or ACT. Does Cedarville specifically have a minimum test score?
We do have minimum test scores, and they are published on our website. But generally speaking, we're not looking at the composite score. We're looking at a math score, and we're looking at an English score.
Okay. So what online setup does Cedarville use? Is it Canvas, Blackboard, something else? And do you have to be online or in person?
So we use Canvas, and we love it. I'll just say that. We love Canvas. I've used Blackboard. I think Canvas is great. And then as far as the format of the classes, they are fully online. Some will have a video component. Some will have podcasts or online resources, but each class is a little bit different. Some even have group projects and components as well.
Okay. So Kathy specifically, she has an 8th grader who wants to take advantage of this program for high school credit. Will an ACT or a SAT score need to be in by the funding deadline of April 1?
Oh, before that, because in order to be accepted to Cedarville and get that letter of admission, if they don't have a high school transcript, we're going to need test scores.
Okay.
So I would say
it's not a part of the funding deadline, it's a part of the college admissions process deadline. You need to have that letter back that you've been accepted by the university, and that's the test scores are a part of that step.
I think a good general rule of thumb is if your student is going to need test scores, then they should test before March 1st. That gives time for the test scores to come back and be validated by the college and to get through that admission process.
So can you start your application with Cedarville when you only have your tests scheduled?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And so you can set up with the testing organizations that they will send your test scores to Cedarville.
Absolutely.
So you can start your application today, even though you don't have those final test scores in.
Right, of course. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, I think I mentioned this, Cedarville does offer free online AccuPlacer exams to help younger students meet those admission requirements. And so once you've started your Cedarville application, then once your student has started their Cedarville application, then they will get an email if they don't have a high school GPA yet that says, here's how to take a standardized test.
Noted. So, Shelley, this is for you. Will Cedarville be adding more dual enrollment online courses to their current offerings?
Oh, that's a big question, right? I do not know of any new courses being added for the fall 25 term, but it's a great question, and we'll pass it on.
Yeah, great question. We'll pass on that the demand is there. So what is remediation free? Maybe that's an earlier question.
Well, it depends on the assessment. And all of the remediation-free scores for the different instruments are listed on the Department of Higher Education's website. So you can go on there and either put that in the search bar or look through the initiatives tab to College Credit Plus. If you can't find it there and you want to see the full list, simply email CHEO at cheohome.org and I'll send you the link to have that information.
Yeah, and we'll be happy to provide that through Cedarville as well. But in terms of what remediation free means, is sometimes we have freshmen who arrive on campus and maybe they're super math bright and have great math scores, but their English scores are low. And so they have to take a semester of what we call English 900 here, and it's a readiness class. And so College Credit Plus will not pay for any sort of readiness classes.
I see one question here about, can you address how to make a transcript? And I want to reiterate that you can go to cheohome.org, correct?
You can email us at cheohome.org with questions on your transcripts. But if you happen to be a member of Homeschool Legal Defense Association, they have a transcript service. If you want to see information on their transcript service and you're not yet a member, hslda.org would give you some basic information. Just look through the high school subject area on transcripts. There are also transcript services that you can find just simply by Googling transcripts for homeschool students. And there are digital services out there that will help you formulate a transcript. They'll help store the information for you from year to year. But that's available through a simple internet search as well.
Parents can, of course, create their own transcript, Sarah.
Okay.
And
I can attest to that because we had to before it was the digital age.
Yes,
For all of my children, we had to make our own transcripts by hand.
So since I review transcripts every day, I would say there are some do's and don'ts with transcripts. So do go to a reliable source to find your transcript template or what information needs to be on the transcript. Don't just grab one that looks great by doing Google Images or looking at Etsy. I would definitely look for a reliable source. Cedarville has a sample transcript on our website. We have a page at cedarville.edu/homeschool. And we have a sample transcript there for you to view. Another great resource that I would throw out there is the NCAA has a homeschool transcript toolkit. And so I think that's a very reliable source. And if your student is an athlete, that is the source you want to use.
Can we talk just for a second on transcripts about what happens to information if you change your transcript after it's been submitted for use? So can we delve into that for a minute or two?
Sure.
Well, first of all, let's talk about what a transcript is. A transcript is not a planning tool. It is not where you lay out all the courses your student is going to take over the course of high school. A transcript is an official record of all the courses that your student has taken that will demonstrate that they are meeting your homeschool's requirements for high school graduation. So courses that your student hasn't taken yet shouldn't be on there. If your student is midway through the year, they have not earned a full credit for that class yet. These are the kinds of mistakes that we see on transcripts all the time. And I was so interested in what I was saying that I lost the thread of your question.
Melanie.
Transcripts can't be changed, though, once they're used.
Right.
It's a record that should not be changed midstream once it's been submitted, especially through the CCP program.
Yes, and I have heard the Homeschool Legal Defense Association representatives say that. I've heard lots of state organization leaders say that as well. Once you start the transcript, you need to be very conscientious about the fact that this is an official record. So when you choose your student's graduation date, choose wisely. If you're looking at a very bright eighth grader and you think there's a chance they might graduate early, don't put the early date there. It's no big deal if a student graduates earlier than the date on their high school transcript. If they graduate later than the date on their high school transcript, then it indicates that there's been some sort of a problem. That's
Academic
how
problem.
colleges would review that, or an illness or something that has prohibited them from meeting their graduation date.
As a side note, Ohio has a statute that's unique that guarantees that the parent-issued diploma shall be recognized to satisfy any legal requirement to show proof of completion of high school. So home-educated graduates should never have to succumb to giving a GED, for example, results for a GED, to get access into post-secondary opportunities like work, military, colleges, universities. We had issues leading up to when that statute was passed in 2015. But it is a very clear, solid statute that your homeschool issued diploma is on the same playing field level as a state certified high school diploma from a public school. So that statute's available on our website for you to review, but a diploma is not the same as a transcript. So you will be issuing your students' diploma when they are finished with their high school course requirements as you have planned out for them. But the transcript is something that you build from year to year.
And it's an official document. You need to save it in a safe place, wherever you keep your students' birth certificate and passport, because even if they don't go to college right after high school, as Melanie mentioned earlier, they may decide to go back later, and they're going to need that transcript.
We have had families contact our office and said things like, we've had a house fire, or my basement flooded, I've lost my records, I don't have them anymore. We strongly recommend that families digitally store these documents, even email them to yourself. So if you have a fire and your computer is ruined and you don't have access to any records, you will still have access to your email service, and you can go into that email and pull back that PDF that you attached to the email even years later.
That's a great suggestion. And I think one more thing on transcripts, Sarah, that is important to say is that when your student is taking a College Credit Plus course, you must put it on the student's transcript, even if you don't like the grade.
Noted.
That is state law. It is required that it be on the student's transcript.
Good point.
So can we reiterate, where can a family go if they need high school transcript help? You said HSLDA?
HSLDA.org.
Okay.
You mentioned the
Cedarville's webpage, cedarville.edu/homeschool, and then also
for athletes.
For athletes and for any student, really, it's a wonderful format, the NCAA Homeschool Transcript Toolkit.
Perfect. We've had several questions on transcripts, so that was a great discussion.
I almost wonder if we should have another session completely on transcripts.
Sounds
If you
great.
want a session on transcripts, tell us in the chat. We'd love to hear what you want to know about.
Okay, a few more questions, because ladies, we've been going for over an hour.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for hanging in there with
Yes.
us.
All right, so are pass-fail results acceptable for high school transcripts?
Well, they aren't calculated in the GPA. So my question is always why? Why would you not issue a grade for that class?
So are dual enrollment courses fully online, or are there in-person requirements for these classes?
For the online classes, there are no in-person requirements. Cedarville does allow local students to commute to campus and take classes, and then, of course, those students need to be here.
Okay, more on that. Is the coursework on Canvas mostly self-paced, or are there like Zoom lectures?
Oh, self-paced is such a tricky word, because there are colleges out there where self-paced means you can finish the class in 3 weeks or 30 weeks. Cedarville's classes are 14 weeks, and your student will have very specific assignments each week. So the pace is decided by Cedarville,
Right.
but your student may decide to self-pace themselves during the week. Some will do that well, and they will schedule out their time, and others will wait until the panic monster comes and then do their work.
That would be me. Okay, can one attend more than one college simultaneously?
Absolutely. Yes. My
Wow.
own son did that. In fact, okay, I'm not recommending this, but my youngest son attended 3 colleges at the same time in order to get the various classes that he wanted. It was a bit of a nightmare in terms of managing his time and his schedule. I do not recommend it.
Wow. Okay, so does being accepted into Cedarville's dual enrollment program and passing all the classes guarantee the student would be accepted to Cedarville after high school graduation?
That's a really good question. So our current policy is that if the student is in good standing, they are automatically accepted to Cedarville. However, that means that we're accepting a student who may have a high school transcript that's 2 or 3 years old. So even if they're automatically accepted, we're going to need an updated transcript so that we can provide an accurate financial aid package for them.
Noted. Okay, just a comment to Melanie. Kendra loved the Homeschool High School Symposium. Yay. So let's reiterate, that is October 4th.
It is October 4th.
And what is the webpage you can go to learn more?
CHEOhome.org, CHEO home.org. I will tell you that every year we try to improve from the year before, and every previous year we always have pretty close to 100% satisfaction. So we're adding something in this coming year. The last couple of years we've had the ASVAB assessment through the U.S. Army, which is not a recruiting assessment, it's a career exploration assessment. 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, it's free. This year we are adding a segment that high school students can register for a track while their parents are in the high school symposium portion of the day. And this new high school segment that we are planning for this October will be strictly on ACT test preparation.
Excellent. Excellent. You know, Sarah, I'm going to put up a slide here just because I know we are past an hour and people are going to start dropping off because they have hungry kids and things in their homeschools. So I want to share some places that you can connect with Cedarville throughout the year. We're going to be at the Teach Them Diligently conference that's held in Dayton. That's usually a very big conference. We're going to be at great homeschool conventions, and you'll be there as well.
Yeah, we'll be at GHC convention this year.
Yep.
At the end of April.
Right, and then I have the College and Career Fair up here. And then, of course, if you want to know more about Cedarville, we would love for you to come to one of our visit days. My favorite days of the year are CU Fridays, and so students and their families come, they attend chapel, they can sit in on some classes. That's really geared more towards your older high school students. So, you know, juniors, sophomore, junior, wouldn't you say, Sarah? It's a long day if you're not already thinking about college.
Yes.
But experiencing chapel with us, this morning's chapel was a hymn sing, and it was just beautiful.
Wonderful.
Just beautiful.
Well, we have so many questions. So,
well, we'll keep going as long as Sarah asks us questions.
can you give up that contact slide again of what email address, web page should they go to for more dual enrollment and CCP questions? Perfect. That's what I wanted to see.
Yes, you can email Cedarville at ccp@cedarville.edu. My colleague Amy and I are both homeschool moms who monitor that inbox.
Wow, so thank you. I'm seriously overwhelmed at how many questions we have, so I would encourage you to follow up with these email addresses for all things Cedarville, specifically about enrollment in the courses we have and the deadlines we have. Definitely do ccp@cedarville.edu, but there also was a lot of questions about transcripts, so I would recommend doing CHEO at cheohome.org, and they can direct you in the right way. Because a lot of you in the comment section are making your own transcripts. So well done, homeschool mom and dad. Well done.
Well done.
So do you have any final words of wisdom that you want to share with our viewers before we sign off?
I'm encouraged at the level of interest in planning through the high school years. So many times families don't even think they can broach that barrier from middle school to high school. So it's just such a blessing to know that families are in it for the long haul. When you look back on these years where the days seem like they're forever, but the years fly by, they're very short. And you will not regret one single minute that you spent with your students in this wonderful period of time that they're transitioning from being a child into the adult years. God is going to bless you tremendously in your faithfulness to Him as you look to pray with your children through their decision-making processes, as you guide their steps. The Lord is going to use you in ways that you have no idea how to even anticipate what He will do. But what He has called you to do, He will equip you to accomplish, and your children will be the benefit of that. So thank you for engaging in this.
Wow, Melanie's always a hard act to follow. You just want to amen that. I think my advice is that as the homeschool guidance counselor for your student, remember that there are many, many ways that your student can explore careers and figure out their calling and where the Lord wants them to serve besides college classes. So I encourage families not to focus so much on the free part of this and racking up that credit, but also to remember that your student needs to volunteer. They need to find internships. They need to do research on different majors and different careers. So I'm going to encourage you to go to cedarville.edu. I'm going to ask you to type into the search bar, finding your major, and look at our website. Our career services team has put together some excellent, excellent resources to help students begin to think about who they are, who the Lord designed them to be. Every student is uniquely designed for a powerful purpose. Sometimes we can get so focused on the academic side that we forget to look for who they are and what they're called to do.
Wow, Shelly, why are you making me cry? Oh. That was good. Well, thank you so much. We had almost 100 viewers, and I am really proud of that. So thanks for hanging in for an hour and 20 minutes. We appreciate it. And remember those email addresses. Definitely reach out. These ladies would love to answer your questions. So have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you soon.